Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm going to go through how to configure a Cisco access point in standalone mode using the GUI, the GUI interface. It's very straightforward. So I've got an access point, a 1242 access point here, which is connected to my local broadband router, and it's going to receive a DHCP address. What we will do is we'll configure a static IP address on that access point. We'll go ahead then get onto the GUI and configure an SSID. We'll call it WLAN1. We'll make sure we broadcast the SSID, and we'll make sure there's no security to begin with, just to do some testing, make sure the laptop can connect to the access point. We'll enable the wireless interfaces, check the connectivity, and once everything's okay, then I'll go through how to add WPA2 pre-shared key authentication to the access point as well. Okay, so I've got my access point firing up here. It's booting up at the moment, so we'll be ready to go in a few seconds. Okay, that's nearly booted up, so just press that. So okay, it looks like it's received an IP address. The default password for getting into Cisco access point is capital CISCO. It's received an IP address of 192.168.0.63, so we'll configure terminal, interface BVI1, IP address 192.168.0.100. Okay, once that's done, we should be able to get onto the GUI and configure it via. That's done. We'll just write that to memory. Put that away. Let's bring up the web browser, and then we go HTTP. Okay, so comes up asking for a username and password. So the default username is blank, and then the password is capital CISCO. Log in. And there we have it. This is the main front GUI of the home page of the access point, and you can see all the information is. So you can see the fast Ethernet's up, but the two radios are down at the moment. So we need to get cracking, and so first thing to do is go into Express Setup. So you click on Express Setup, and it comes up with the default configuration. You have to wait a few seconds. It's a little bit laggy, and it remembers old information first. There we go. So this is what it should look like. So we're going to configure it. We're going to call that AP1. We'll give it a new name. We'll keep it static. The IP address is fine because we configured it. Put a new default gateway on there, which is 192.168.0.1. SNMP community, you can leave it default if you like, but if you got it in your live network, then you should change these. Otherwise, anybody can access the access point using the default 6 community strings. But it's good practice to change it. So just make it private 1, say. Everything else stays as default because we're going to configure it as an access point. I'm not configuring it as a root bridge or work bridge or anything else like that. So it's staying as an access point. So there's no other changes required. Just click on apply, and it throws a little warning up saying you're about to change your configuration. Say OK to that, and you wait till that finishes. So that's the static IP address configured. As I said, it is quite laggy. So although we've configured 192.168, it still comes up with this default information. But there we go. So it's now the actual what's on the access point. So the next stage is we're gonna configure the SSID. So if we go back to our lab, so we've done the static IP addressing and we've called it an AP1. We're going to now do the static wireless LAN. So if you go into Express Security and wait for that to load up. So here we go. So at the moment there's no SSIDs on there at all. So we're going to call this one WLAN1. And we'll click on Broadcast SSID. The VLAN, I'm not using any VLANs at the moment, so it's a default VLAN, so a VLAN1. So I haven't got a switch or anything, so we'll leave that. From a security perspective, I'm going to leave that as no security to start off with. We'll do the WPA2 a little bit later on in the lab. Okay. So there's nothing else to set, so just click on Apply, acknowledge the warning again, and you should now have an SSID configured. So there we go. So we've got our SSID. So it's called WLAN1, and it's open authentication at the moment, and we've told it to broadcast the SSID. So that's ready. Now the next stage is to enable the network interfaces. So as I showed earlier in the home page, you can see that the Ethernet, the fast Ethernet interface was up, but the radios were both down. So we need to enable the radio interfaces. There's several ways of getting to this particular section where you want to enable the radio. You can click on that if you like. You can click on network interfaces. So if I'll just show you the network interfaces way as well. So once you get into that, so it tells you there, so there's the radio, it's disabled and down at the moment. There's the other radio, there's the Ethernet. So you can either click it here or click here. So there's several ways of getting to that point, but let's just click that. So now this part is pretty straightforward, but as I said, the GUI is a little bit laggy. I prefer using CLI, but you have to bear with it. So click on, so once you click on this, you've got the main settings here for the radio. So this is the G radio, and it tells you the operational data rates and everything, and the frequencies. So we're ready to go. Click on settings, and you just have to wait for it. Really, it is a little bit slow. So as soon as that comes up, we should be able to enable our radio. And you see it's whirling away, so it's trying to get to, here we go. Now at this point you need to make sure you wait. You shouldn't start clicking buttons, otherwise it's going to get a little bit confused. You need to wait till the whole page has loaded, and there we go. Once that disabled line comes up, it means it has loaded. Whether it's enabled or disabled, one of those comes up, it's done, right? And these data rates change as well. So the next stage is basically straightforward. You need to enable the radio. It's going to stay as an access point, and everything else you leave as default. You don't need to touch anything, and then click on apply. And then this gives you a warning message. You click on OK again. So at this point, our radio has been enabled. Just need to make sure that when it comes reloads, it comes up here as enabled. As I said, it will come up. You have to bear with it. There we go. So that's done and dusted. So if we have a look at our network interfaces now, while that's loading, I should be able to show you there. The wireless LAN has just popped in as well. Okay, so there's your wireless LAN, all enabled, connected. And if we look at the wireless connections, we can connect to that right now. So let's have a look at the settings here. So go to wireless LAN, we connect. And that's connected immediately. So if we look at the advanced options, there we go. So it's received an IP address of 192.168.0.25. The DNS is 192.168.0.1, and the default gateway is that also. Okay, so we've now successfully configured our SSID. We've successfully enabled the radio. The final part of this lab is to enable the WPA2. Right, to enable the WPA2 is again really straightforward. The first thing you need to do is to go into the security section. So if you click on security, again a bit laggy, but there we go. So here's security, and then the first thing you need to do is go into encryption manager. So once the encryption manager comes up, we should see some options. So some options for security, and this is the 802.11g radio. That's what we are configuring. I've only enabled the G radio, but if you're doing the A radio, then you'd click on this bar, but we're doing the G first, and the main thing to do is to click on Cipher, and then on here you do AES CCMP. So that's the encryption standard that we're going to use. Everything else leave as default. Okay, so we apply to all. Another warning message, and you say OK to that. Just need to make sure that does accept it. So if we wait for that to load up, and if you click on Cipher, it should say AES CCMP. It's important that's set correctly. Okay, sometimes if your GUI is not behaving properly, that might not be set correctly. So now we've done that. The last final stage is to go into the SSID manager. So we click on the SSID manager, and any moment now our WLAN should come up as well on here. So as soon as the WLAN comes up, you click on WLAN, right? This tells you what the WLAN is, any VLANs or anything like that, and what interfaces as well. So this now covers both interfaces. Okay, so straightforward. We work our way down, and to the client authenticated key method, and here you put mandatory, you enable the WPA, and then change that to WPA2, and now you just enter your key. So this time I'm going to put a password in there, so let's go capital CISCO 12345. Okay, and that's all you need to do. Once that's set up, you scroll all the way down and click on the apply button here. Please note that there's a second apply here as well. We haven't done any changes to that part. All we've done, that's for guest SSIDs, but I'm doing the main SSID. You click on apply and say OK. Once that's refreshed, we should now try and reconnect our access to that access point. I'm currently connected to, let's just go to my network settings. I'm not connected to anything, so we should be able to go to that. And if we connect to that, it's asking for your key. Capital CISCO 12345. And next. Yes. And there we go. It's connected. So if we look on the advanced options, and it's received the same IP address because it's the same interface, so it remembers them. But that works. That's great. So if we just now go into our command prompt and do a quick ping test, there we go. Excellent. So, and then we should be able to do the web browser as well and go to Yahoo. Yep, that's working fine. Look at the news. Brilliant. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found that useful, and thanks again.